When it comes to the Soviet Union, Chinese people have mixed feelings. If from the establishment of the Soviet Union to the Sino-Soviet hostility as a node, we can find that the Soviet Union has been of great help to China, mainly including several aspects. First, the Soviet Union established the Comintern, which passed the communist ideology to China and helped the CCP grow and develop. Without the Soviet Union, it is doubtful whether the theory of communism would have had a chance to take root in warlord China. Second, the Soviet Union vigorously promoted the first cooperation between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party, assisted the Communist Party of China to establish the Whampoa Military Academy, and promoted the Northern Expedition to unify China. Third, after the outbreak of the anti-Japanese war, the Soviet Union gave great assistance to China in resisting the Japanese. Fourth, after the founding of New China, the Soviet Union helped China establish a system-wide industrialization foundation. China has become the only big country that has achieved full industrialization after the rise of the great powers. Even Italy can only be regarded as a half-industrial country, Spain can almost only be regarded as an agricultural country, France's industrialization is also not perfect and incomplete, and India's full-scale industrialization is even more hopeless. This is the great significance of Sino-Soviet friendship. 1. Cooperation between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. In June 1921, the Communist International sent Ma Lin and others to Shanghai to propose the convening of the party's National Congress and the formal establishment of the Communist Party of China. From July 23 to 31, 1921, the first National Congress of the Communist Party of China was held in Shanghai. Ma Lin, a representative of the Communist International, believed that the CCP only had more than 50 people. If Soviet Russia could not unite with Sun Yat-sen's Kuomintang, they would achieve nothing in China. Under the impetus of the Communist International, the CCP agreed to implement the policy of intra-party cooperation with the Kuomintang. The Soviet Union chose Sun Yat-sen as its preferred partner, and at the same time asked Sun Yat-sen to form an alliance with the Chinese Communist Party. At the Third Congress of the Communist Party of China in June 1923, the Communist Party of China agreed that all members of the Communist Party should join the Kuomintang in their own names, but still maintain the independence of the Communist Party organization. More than 400 members of the Communist Party of China and some members of the Socialist Youth League joined the Kuomintang. With the help of Soviet funds and advisors, the Kuomintang founded the Whampoa Military Academy, the Central Bank, and formed the National Revolutionary Army. When Whampoa was founded, there were only 30 Cantonese-made Mausers. The Soviet Union shipped 8,000 Russian-style rifles, each with 500 rounds of ammunition, shipped over by sea at one time. By the beginning of the Northern Expedition, the Soviet Union had aided the Kuomintang with 4,000 Japanese rifles and 4 million rounds of bullets, 14,000 Russian rifles with 8 million rounds of bullets, 90 various machine guns and 24 various guns, with a total value of nearly 3 million rubles. To Sun Yat-sen's will. 17 days before his death, that is, on February 24, 1925, Mr. Sun Yat-sen knew that he was dead, so he made 3 wills in advance. The 3 wills are the will, the family will, and the testament to the Soviet Union. The first 2 wills were dictated by Sun Yat-sen and written down by Wang Jinghui. Letter to the Soviet Union was dictated by Sun Yat-sen in English, and his Soviet advisor Borodin and others took notes. When Sun Yat-sen dictated the will, Song Ziwen, Sun Ke, Yangzi, Xiao Yuanchang, Wu Jinghong, Dai Ensei, He Xiangning, Zolu, Dai Jitao and others who were present all signed the will as witnesses. At 1 o'clock in the morning on March 11 Sunday Yat-sen knew that he was alive soon, so he signed his name on the will. Mr. Sun Yat-sen received the help of the Soviet Union in his later years, and personally formulated the 3 major policies of uniting Russia, the Communist Party of China to support agriculture and industry, emphasizing that the future revolution will never achieve success unless Russia is a teacher. In his suicide note to his comrades in the Soviet Union, he wrote, "Dear comrades, Central Executive Committee of the Grand Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. I am suffering from an incurable disease here, and my thoughts are now turned to you, to the future of our party and our country. You are the chiefs of the great coalition of free republics. This great union of free republics is the true legacy of the immortal Lenin and the world of oppressed peoples. Refugees under imperialism will use this to defend their freedom and seek liberation from the international system based on the partiality of ancient slavery and war. What I left behind was the Democratic Party. I I hope that the Kuomintang will cooperate with you in completing its historical work of liberating China and other invaded countries from the imperialist system. Fate made me have to put aside my unfinished business and hand it over to someone who will stick to the Kuomintang doctrine and teachings and organize my true comrades. Therefore, I have ordered the Kuomintang to carry out the work of the National Revolutionary Movement so that China can be freed from the semi-colonial shackles imposed by imperialism on China. In order to achieve this project, I have ordered the Kuomintang to continue to support you for a long time. I am convinced that your government will also continue the assistance it has given to our country. Dear comrades, as I bid farewell to you, I would like to express my warm hope that the dawn will soon dawn, when the Soviet Union welcomes a strong and independent China as a good friend and ally, and the two countries are fighting for the freedom of the oppressed peoples of the world, hand in hand to achieve victory. I would like to wish you peace in brotherhood. Sun Yat-sen. 3. From the Northern Expedition to the War of Resistance. On July 9, 1926, the Northern Expedition officially began. Galen, the general advisor of the Soviet Union, formulated a battle plan for the Northern Expedition. From the army level to the division level, almost all the Northern Expeditionary Army sent Soviet advisors to assist in the command. The Northern Expedition quickly captured Hunan and Hubei, and then occupied most of Jiangxi, Fujian, and Anhui. In 1927, Chiang Kai-shek betrayed the revolution, the Kuomintang openly opposed and slaughtered the Communist Party, and the relationship between China and the Soviet Union fell into an ice valley. Zhang Zuoliang and the Soviet Union fought each other in the Middle East Road incident and were hit head-on. In 1931, Japan invaded and occupied northeast China, directly threatening the far east of the Soviet Union, and Sino-Soviet relations heated up again. In 1937, the all-out war of resistance broke out. The weapons and equipment of the Chinese army are backward, only light weapons, and heavy weapons are scarce. The quality of Japanese artillery is better than that of China, the quantity is 5 times that of China, the number of aircraft is 13 times that of China, and the number of tanks is 36 times that of China. China does not have its own military industry and cannot produce heavy weapons by itself. The United States and Britain, which the Chiang Kai-shek regime relied on, completely ignored Japan's aggression against China, and had no intention of helping. On August 21, 1937, China and the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression treaty, marking the entry into the honeymoon period of Sino-Soviet relations. Japan issued a statement saying that the treaty signed by China and the Soviet Union was the greatest threat to Japan. On September 11, 1937, the Soviet Union decided to provide the national government with 82 T-26 light tanks, 20 anti-aircraft guns, 50 anti-tank guns and ammunition. In March 1938, the first batch of T-26 tanks and Soviet instructors arrived in Xiongtan City, Hunan Province, China. In August 1938, the 200th Division, the first mechanized division in the history of the National Government Army, was born. This division was an organized mechanized unit based on Soviet-made weapons and equipment. Soviet tank instructors acted as advisors to tank units. In December 1937, a delegation of the national government submitted a request for assistance to the Soviet government, involving a total of 20 integrated infantry divisions weapons and equipment. In April 1938, 320 artillery pieces, 900 machine guns, rifles, bullets, and shells donated by the Soviet Union arrived in Hong Kong. In July 1938, the Soviet government passed a resolution to sell a large amount of weapons, ammunition, and military equipment to China in the form of loans. On November 23, 1938, 300 cannons, 2,000 machine guns and other weapons arrived in Rangoon, the capital of Myanmar, and arrived in China by land. At this time, the national government was experiencing heavy losses in the defense of Wuhan. This batch of equipment gave the Chinese army strong support and prevented the Japanese army from continuing to advance westward. From October 1937 to October 1939, the Soviet Union provided a total of 985 aircraft, more than 1,300 artillery pieces, more than 14,000 machine guns, as well as a large amount of ammunition and other various weapons and equipment to the nationalist government. In addition to military assistance, the Soviet Union also sent military advisory groups of various arms and Soviet volunteer pilots to China. In 1937, Soviet volunteer pilots became the main force in air combat over China. On February 18, 1938, the Wuhan air battle broke out, and Soviet pilots shot down 12 Japanese planes. From July 8, 1937 to May 1, 1938, the Chinese Air Force shot down and destroyed a total of 625 aircraft on the Japanese airfield in air battles. The Japanese Air Force suffered more than 1,200 casualties. The role of Soviet volunteer pilots cannot be ignored. In the battle with the Japanese invaders, 227 Soviet pilots died for the cause of China's war of resistance. Public opinion often speaks out, claiming that the Soviet Union's assistance to China in the war of resistance was to use China to contain Japan. Such words are simply ridiculous. In the relationship between countries, what reason do other countries have to help China for free and without purpose? For us, looking at the war of resistance against Japan, the most important question is who helped us and who helped Japan. In fact, it was the United States and Britain that helped to condone Japan's aggression against China. Beginning on June 22, 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union suffered heavy losses. It went all out to resist Germany and had no time to help China. In December 1941, Japan launched the Pearl Harbor incident, and the United States began to assist China in resisting Japan. It is despicable and shameless. Today, Chinese public opinion only has the strange phenomenon that the United States aided China in resisting Japan, while the Soviet Union's early help was completely ignored. Without the assistance of the Soviet Union, it is not certain whether the Kuomintang government can hold on until the outbreak of the Pacific War. 4. Sino-Soviet friendship. After the founding of New China, the Soviet Union assisted China with 156 industrial projects, and also provided a full range of military equipment and technical support including atomic bombs, missiles, aircraft, and tanks. Among the 156 industrial projects aided by the Soviet Union to China, the first batch of 50 industrial projects aided by China covers fields such as electricity, steel, and chemistry. These projects are mainly distributed in the Northeast, which already has an industrial base. In 1953, through Sino-Soviet negotiations, 91 new aid projects were added. After Khrushchev came to power in 1954, another 15 aid projects were added, and the technical level was greatly improved. During the period of China's first five-year plan, among the 156 industrial projects aided by the Soviet Union, by the end of 1957, 68 projects had been completed and put into production, enabling China to build a relatively complete industrial base from scratch. It is no exaggeration to say that the Soviet Union helped the impoverished New China to establish a complete industrial system. A key issue must be pointed out. Before the Second World War, the world's industrial countries had basically established their pattern. China is the only country that has achieved full industrialization after the Second World War. Before China, the countries that can be called industrial countries are Britain, Germany, the United States, and the Soviet Union. France, Italy, and Japan are barely half industrial countries. The rise of Japan after the war was due to the outbreak of the Korean War, and the United States established an industrial base in Japan, which made Japan complete its industrialization again. Compared with Japan, China's scientific and technological base and industrial base are far behind. In terms of the modern technology tree, China still needs to start climbing from the basics in many fields, which is too far behind the West. This is one of the reasons why we are still catching up in the technology field to this day. From the perspective of industrialization and technological development, the Soviet Union's help to China was selfless and priceless. We must not forget. The Soviet Union's assistance to China is unprecedented in human history, and it is unprecedented. It is impossible for a nationalist government to do so. The Chinese should thank the background of the times at that time, and thank Comrade Stalin for his great mind as a communist. It is a pity that Comrade Stalin passed away too early. Khrushchev's denial of Stalin triggered the Sino-Soviet enmity. If the Soviet and Eastern camps lose China, they will definitely lose in the face of the United States and the West. This is the common strategic loss of China and the Soviet Union, and it is also the main reason for the disintegration of the Soviet Union. As China, which has always adhered to the socialist system, if it can clearly see the great achievements of the Soviet Union, it will not easily deny the Soviet model, let alone deny the great significance of the communist movement to the Soviet Union, China, and the world. Great value.